into you guys and get a good one. Not a good one, just a great one and an honest one and an honest discussion and not just yelling back and forth, but really an in-depth discussion and, just a trademark, Mike and Mike, and, thank you for 18 years of just spectacular, honest, right-on work. And not many times where you tune into anything do you just say, hey, I trust those guys. I want to hear what they have to say. I want to hear who they're going to bring on. And so, again, thanks. In the military, they say, well done. And that's what I would say for you guys. Very, very well done.
We really do appreciate that. You certainly made our brand a lot better by coming on the show as many times as you have no doubt about that.
So let's talk a little bit about your team now, and then I would love to go a little bigger picture with things. But obviously you got the number one team in the country. You have a showdown game with Izzo's Michigan State team, and you beat them last night. And there was Grayson Allen, the leader now with 37 points. And I'd love you just to talk to a little bit about him. We see the growth in him. It is well documented, all the stuff that's happened with him there. And now he's got to be the leader of this young group of guys. So what sorts of conversations do you have with him about that, and what are you seeing in him as you sort of undertake a new season with him in that role?
More than just a conversation, it's just a relationship. And, when you have a kid for a long time, and he's been through the very top of something that can happen to a young man, whether it be winning a national championship and being a hero, to being an All-American, to being somebody who is kind of vilified and booed at every possession when he's on the road and really closely scrutinized. I mean, nobody I've coached has gone through that whole thing. And so along the way, you build up a great relationship. And what you want to do is grow from it. And he's a great young man. He's not a kid. He's a young man, and he's really changed his game, to where I feel he's as good a shooter as there is in college basketball. And if you're always driving, you're getting knocked to the floor and all that. I said, the basis of your game should be shooting, and then complemented by driving, and then we need you to lead. Boy, he did all those things last night to the top level, and especially lead. It was the most vocal in warm-ups in a locker room when another teammate was making a mistake, or he was really there. It was beautiful to watch, and he deserves it. He's worked hard, and he's real healthy now.
11 of 20 from the field, 7 of 11 three-point land, 8 of 8 from the free throw. Just a spectacular night. And he is a young man, and he's playing with 4 kids. You got 4 freshmen out there with a senior. Yeah. So in the game of today, which you have to adapt to, how does the learning curve change when you have 4 freshmen out on the court?
Mike, one of the things with freshmen is, there's a mental or emotional maturity, but there's also a physical maturity. When they are not mature in all 3 of those areas, I mean, that doesn't mean they're not good kids, but they're not ready. That becomes very, very difficult. Especially the 4 freshmen who start, physically, they are really ahead of the game. They're strong. They're very athletic. They really know how to work hard already, and they're great kids. And so they've been able to adapt a little bit, much better than a normal freshman would. And then being with our upper class, not just Grayson, but the guys who come off the bench, Javin DeLaurier, Antonio Vrankovic, these guys, they've been really good setting an environment where they're not selfish, they're not envious of these new guys. Instead, they're helping them all the time. So we have a really good environment. We just have to keep growing. We're very young.
Mike and Coach K, it's interesting you say that because there is so much scrutiny right now on how young basketball players are being developed, obviously with all the stuff that happened with the FBI and everything, and all these questions about AAU and is it good, is it bad, and all of that. It sounds to me like what you're saying is the players you're getting coming in as freshmen now, I would ask it in the form of a question, are they more prepared to play college basketball than they were when you started at Duke 35 years ago or whatever it is? Are the players coming in today who are 17, 18 years old more prepared than they were in the 80s?
Well, two things. One, I think they're more physically ready. You know, all these games and they really as youngsters in high school and AAU, they develop their bodies more. You know, the weight training, the conditioning, all these things. I think they're better prepared that way. You know, the other thing is they're not coming into an environment where they did in the 80s when Sampson was playing 4 years, or Ewing, and in the 90s when guys were still staying a long time. There's talent, really good developed talent that's older, but it's not necessarily first-round talent in the NBA, where first-round talent in the NBA was prevalent in all classes, especially the upper class, before. Now the competitive set that they have to go against is more experienced, older, not necessarily more talented, and so they can adapt a little bit quicker. And then what we try to do is we allow a little bit more slippage, you know, in their performance. That doesn't mean we tolerate bad things, but we understand that they're not going to know things as well as you know, a team of my 210 team with Shire and Nolan Smith and Singler and Zubak and Lance Thomas, who were juniors and seniors. Those guys, you know, they've been through the wars. Last night was the first big game for 7 of my freshmen, and that's huge. But they've adapted really well, and they're really good kids. They want to learn, and that's part of who you recruit too. We've been lucky to get not just good players, but really good young men.
So that being said, because of the youth of the team, when in your mind do you know who you are this year? How many games? And I know you can't put this game here, but how far into the season do you say, okay, this is what we are?
Well, you have some idea, but, you know, if you already say who you are, then you may not become who you're supposed to be. In other words, if you allow yourself to say, hey, we're there right now, you know, with these guys, I think you have to keep the house can never be completely built. You know, you have to keep adding on to it. And I think to me, that's the excitement and the beauty of coaching a group like this now in my career as opposed to a veteran group. And these guys have to be given room to grow. And we may not, you know, like I know that as a player, you know, Marvin Bagley or Wendell Carter, they're not going to be as good for me this year as they will be eventually. So why would I ever put a ceiling on what they can do? I'm just going to keep trying to get them better, and then I need to adapt my system along the way to allow that growth. And I like that. So, I mean, you know, that's one of the things I still really love about coaching is that aspect of it, and it's newer now than it was 10 years ago. So, again, the coaching craft has changed a little bit, and you should change accordingly, and that's what I'm trying to do.
And as part of that coaching comes along, as we mentioned with Grayson Allen, his maturity and discipline along the way. And let me first say, I'm not asking you to discipline anybody else's players, but like in the situation at UCLA, everybody's trying to figure out what they're going to do. What I'm asking you is, what's your method to decide for your players? Do you seek out other counsel and talk to other people about what you should do, or what is the way you go about disciplining your players?
Well, you know, I don't like rules. I like standards, you know, because you can own a standard. You can only obey or disobey a rule. And I think what you have to do is look at every situation and say what's right, not just what's right for what was done, but what's right for the youngster who is involved at that time. And somebody might say, well, you did this differently for one guy than another, and they're right. But also, it gives you as a leader an opportunity to make sure that you're personalizing the the solution to the situation that you're in, instead of just categorizing it in a certain area and saying we're always going to do this, when this happens. And I don't know if I'm making sense here, but
no, you are.
Sure.
It gives me great latitude in leadership, but it also gives me the ability to personalize, because I know the kid. I know that. Now we're not talking. Like, depends on if it's unbelievably serious, then hey, there are laws for this and all that. But that's the way I've tried to lead my program, and even with the U.S. team, although we didn't have, you always have a few problems. We developed standards, not rules, and we met as a group, and guys, LeBron and these guys gave their input, and then we said, well, here are the 14 things that we're going to adhere to, and they became our standards, a way of living. And then whatever happened along the way with my U.S. team or Duke teams, then I try to be that leader and decide. I always seek counsel. I'm not, I think, especially for my athletic director, if my president is involved, and for my staff. And but again, the personalization to the solution of a problem, to me, is always what you should do. And I like that form of leadership, and also, it's not the end of whatever the problem was, is not the end of the relationship you have with that youngster. Mm-hmm. It is part of the journey with the youngster, and then how you handle it can, even in a bad situation, can produce something really positive as you go forward, because you don't want to end the relationship. It's just a bump. It's what happens. And again, that's what I try to do. I'm not saying it's right for everybody, but it's what I like to do, and it's proven to be good for us.
Coach, we can't thank you enough for everything over all these years, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you again soon, maybe at the Final Four when you play Northwestern this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, Coach.
That would be great. All right. And, hey, thank you once again for both of you. Job greatly done, and you've done great things for sport, all sport. And sad but happy that you were together this long, and really set a standard that other people can try to live up to.
Thank you,
We
Coach.
appreciate that.
You're the
Coach.
best. Thank you very much.
Take care, you guys.
Coach K with us, #1 team in the country. Quick break, back in a moment. Much more. Mike and Mike.